younger generations, people who are younger than you and me, are fully on board with camera first applications. They're using TikTok, they're using Snapchat, which all again using the camera. With the camera comes AR filters, face filters, content that like flies around you. I don't expect any of them to graduate back to 2D feeds if it's kind of a Facebook feed or a Twitter feed. That's why you're seeing companies like Facebook kind of changing their entire roadmap to become a metaverse company. And they're doing Facebook Horizons, which is like their own kind of version of the metaverse. I think, again, it kind of goes hand to hand. We're seeing all these big companies like trying to bring you to their platform and keeping people engaged.
Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Zero to Play podcast. I'm your host, Carl Leduc, and today I'm joined by Alon. Alon is the founder and CEO of Echo3D, a cloud platform for 3D, AR, and VR that provides tools and network infrastructure to help developers and companies quickly build and deploy 3D apps, games, and content. They've received support from Techstars, funding from Y Combinator, Convoy Ventures, and were named AR/VR finalists for South by Southwest 2020. Today, we'll be talking about use cases for this innovative tech, Alon's story and vision of the future of the industry, and more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 4 of season 4 of the Zero to Play podcast. Welcome Alon to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. So excited to be here, Carl.
Wow. So yeah, this is an interesting chat because I am not a developer. I've really tried to do my research and due diligence to ask the right questions in this chat to kind of get as much juicy info out of you, because I think what you are pursuing and the kind of mission of Echo3D is incredible and can really disrupt, or not disrupt, but offer a solution to future apps and technology that is being created today. So I guess we might jump around a bit to like different industries and think about different ways that the future might look. And I think I'm all right with that for this because I think the potential of how Echo3D can help businesses in the future is vast. So I guess. And I think you'd do the best job of kind of selling it and explaining it. But could you explain a few use cases for Echo3D and kind of who might be interested in this tech for projects that they're making?
Definitely. So I mean, let's break it down kind of the basics. So today we're super used to, if we're building a website, even if you're non-technical, that you have tools to kind of drag and drop an image or video and suddenly they appear in web and mobile. You don't have to be a web developer to update a blog post, right? So what Echo does is really kind of bring that innovation into the world of 3D content, allowing you to basically drag and drop 3D models, animations, interactive content, and then basically stream them to any device, any game engine, any headset, or even web browser. And the use cases that we're seeing really prevalent these days are gaming, obviously. Everyone wants to build kind of the next Pokemon Go or the next Fortnite or the next Roblox. And all of these are basically kind of massive social networks that use 3D content at scale. Another use case that we see that is really prominent is e-commerce. Recently, we had a few clients in the NFT space that created NFT marketplaces using Echo as their kind of underlying technology. And this is something that we never kind of imagined a few years ago. E-commerce is a really kind of big use case for 3D. I think about try before you buy. Even Amazon kind of recently added like a swipe left and cover a camera in the Amazon app. You'll be able to kind of see the Alexa before you kind of buy it or visualize products. So that's another big use case is kind of 3D content. And another one is kind of advertising and marketing. People do a lot of kind of really immersive kind of campaigns using Echo that basically allows brands to inject 3D content and for you as the user to kind of interact with content in the real world or inside the game. Again, as I mentioned with NFTs, it's as kind of an unexpected use case is, who knows, right? Like we can actually help others, other kind of use cases in their imagination at this point. But the same way we expect videos and images to kind of be integrated to any use case, I feel the same way about 3D content.
Totally. And because we're talking about 3D content and just anything in like a 3D environment, it really can, and because we're moving towards a more virtual world, like every industry can be impacted by technology like this. And so one question that I kind of have, which might help just kind of give some understanding of kind of the vision is, I'd love to know what your definition of, because I kind of want to focus on the game aspect of this, because that's kind of where the thread of the podcast usually follows. But like, what is your definition of a game when it comes to like 3D apps, and how you think people are creating products using Echo that are in the game space?
Love it. Yeah. So, I mean, the kind of, the straight up definition is basically an engaging application that has some kind of gamification inside of it, rewards, interaction with users, in kind of usually levels and stuff like that. But I think what we're seeing right now is this kind of tectonic shift that games are not actually just games, right? We mentioned Roblox, Fortnite, these are games, but they're actually massive social networks.
Mm.
People who are younger than you and me are kind of injected into this metaverse and they're playing with their friends, talking to them all the time. Literally yesterday, I think, so kind of good timing with today's recording is that Shopify kind of introduced their own kind of Shopify game that basically is like a 3D game, very similar to Roblox, very similar to Fortnite, but basically somehow works with brands and works with like Shopify stores. So even in their world, they're using games as this kind of vessel to push their product. So I think,
Mm.
again, going back to what we said about use cases, gaming today again is just like a 3D environment that you can play around with, that you can kind of achieve rewards. But I think the definition of gaming is changing rapidly, literally as we speak.
Totally. And another announcement that happened this week is Netflix just acquired their first studio, their first game
Very true.
studio. And that's just
Yep.
going to shift just what entertainment, like the kind of entertainment that is being pushed and the kind of entertainment that is most engaging. So yeah, I guess one question that this has kind of inspired me to want to ask is, how do you not get overwhelmed by the potential of this technology? Because that's kind of how I'm feeling when trying to think about like how Echo can affect the future. How do you navigate that as the
Yeah.
CEO on a day-to-day basis, so you're not getting pulled in like every direction?
I mean, I love it. I thrive in that kind of environment that like I know I see the potential. I think that's part of being a founder and kind of building your startup, that you want to have all that potential out there because you want to kind of capitalize on all of it. But I think what works for me is kind of just looking at the past and see what works. I mean, think about websites. 10 years ago, every website looked like a Craigslist. Wasn't that good. HTML1, every page is very static. And then you had a lot of tools to help you build websites. And suddenly that potential was realized. A website could be a social network. It could be an e-commerce
Mm,
website. 5 years later, we had the same thing with mobile apps. You had mobile apps that were pretty okay, but then you had tools to build better mobile apps. And suddenly a mobile app could be a ride-hailing app or a dating app.
mm,
Amazing use cases that, again, you can never imagine. So I think the same thing. We went from web to mobile to now AR, VR, 3D, immersive, call it whatever. We're kind of having the same kind of evolution of content and this kind of revolution of experiences that for me just makes me so excited about this, because we're talking
mm.
about 3D content and like we see the obvious cases of again gaming and e-commerce, but who knows, right? Like again, we're limited only by our imagination. Who can imagine that mobile apps would be so useful to getting an Uber, but now
Yeah.
it's like the standard. Same thing with 3D. This literally what kind of wakes me up in the morning, like the kind of prospect of like having more and more applications.
Totally. Getting the enterprise partnership with Unity at the beginning of the year must have been hugely validating. Do you? Well, one question is, what was that like? And the other is, do you feel like game
Yeah.
engines like Unity are on board with the same vision and the same kind of scale of what Echo sees in the future?
100%. So that partnership with Unity is amazing. I think they're doing a phenomenal job in like again pushing one of the leading game engines in the world at this point. It's free. Developers can kind of jump in, play around with it, and just start building. And with Echo, they can basically stream assets to Unity, control data remotely. You mentioned that you're not a developer, so Echo could be perfect for you because you can literally integrate, can work with a developer, they can build your Unity game, but then you can use Echo as your kind of no-code tool to manage content and change things remotely. I think they're definitely, again, if you think about like as a game engine and you see Unity literally IPO'd this year, you're seeing a lot of their revenue coming from non-obvious use cases that companies that you would not expect to buy a game engine, they do. So I encourage kind of listeners to kind of look into like who is the client persona for game engine these days. Very non-obvious results. And I think, again, that's what's so exciting about kind of gaming tech in general, that we're seeing it being injected in all these different kind of use cases and domains. I think one story that I can actually share from Techstars, that was kind of the initial program that we went through, and they were kind of the first to invest in the company, and they have an amazing network of mentors. And you basically, like the first 2 weeks for you as a founder, you kind of talk to like almost like 20 mentors a day, something like really, really crazy. But one of the mentors was a banker. And I was like, we're building a developer tool. There's no way this conversation will be fruitful. But it was the most amazing conversation I had, because it started out by me just asking them, what is the most pressing issues that banking apps have, or just banking in general has? And he said that banking apps are kind of all the same. They don't, if you're in Chase or in your Bank of America, there's no differentiation between the banking app. It's all exactly the same. And it's hard to bring younger generations to use a banking app, because again, branches are kind of closing down and stuff like that. And I said, you know what? How about if in your banking app, you would swipe left, suddenly a camera pops up and you can spawn a virtual ATM. You think that will help your application sell better, engage new customers? And he was like, yeah, amazing. So from like literally a 30 kind of second conversation, we found a use case for 3D content in banking, which is, again, such a non-obvious thing. I definitely encourage listeners, if anyone is a developer, build that app, take that idea. I think it's amazing. But again, I think all you have to do is like brainstorm a little bit, and you'll find how you can inject a game engine or 3D content into your domain. And I think companies like Unity, who are now, again, IPO level companies, are doing exactly that, exactly the same thing that Echo is trying to do, just like kind of help more and more individuals and companies build 3D applications at scale.
Totally, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great idea for people that are maybe like living in this kind of innovative spaces, to go talk to people that are completely outside of your circle and outside of your industry, and see how they kind of react. Because I think that's another hugely validating moment when someone that isn't hyper focused on tech to be kind of inspired by the ability of like a virtual ATM and things like that. I think that's a great test for people to do that might be wondering if their ideas are too pie in the sky or not. You mentioned Techstars, and so in 2019 you said that was like the first kind of the first people that kind of took your idea and helped you shape it up. Can you explain how kind of Echo came into fruition and how that led you to go through the Techstars program?
Yeah, definitely. So the origin story here is I did my master's in computer science at Columbia University. And my twin brother, who's my co-founder, did his LLM at Columbia Law School. So you're both at Columbia, and my thesis was around augmented reality for surgical use cases. We basically took CT and MRI scans, converted them into 3D models, and then physicians would wear the Microsoft HoloLens, which is a really, really cool smart glasses device. And physicians were able to see the patient's heart floating above them during surgery. It was an amazing experience for me personally. I got to scrub into surgery, which was pretty insane. Like there's literally a person on the table, they're drilling into that patient, and I'm like, here, take these smart glasses. I mean, look inside. And that was a phenomenal kind of use case for, again, 3D content in the world of medicine. But the problem is that I had to do something that I really, really hate. And that's waking up super early in the morning. I had to be at the hospital at like 6 a.m. to take those 2D scans, convert them to 3D models, rebuild the application, which was written in Unity, by the way, and then deployed on smart glasses for the physician to wear. And I mean, that process was frustrating. It took so much time. And in general, I'm an engineer. What am I doing in an OR? And that realization that like, I just want to swap a heart for an aorta or a different patient's heart and just like swap content remotely. And I can do that on websites and mobile. Like I don't need to be technical. We don't need a developer every time you want to update a blog post, like I mentioned. So why is that not the case in 3D? So our team, we basically started interviewing developers, talking to other people who are building applications. Columbia has an amazing AR VR lab that we kind of talked to people there, like, what are you building? What's the issues? And we saw like a recurring theme that it's really hard to kind of manage and deliver 3D data. And again, looking back in the past, these solutions exist for websites, mobile apps, images, videos. So we said, we're not reinventing the wheel here, we're repurposing it. There's a new type of content. We're creating the kind of cloud tools and network infrastructure to facilitate 3D content management and delivery. And Echo was born. And we started getting traction, then got investments from Techstars and got grants from Y Combinator and NYC Media Lab and even Verizon, because we did a cool kind of 5G streaming of 3D content project with them. And right after, kind of Reimagine Ventures invested in us. They're amazing. And recently we closed another funding round with Convoy Ventures and Space Capital, and Reimagine Ventures reinvested, and additional angels from Facebook and GitHub and Datadog. They're all kind of developer focused.
That's incredible. Wow. Congrats. That's so cool.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, we went through kind of the classic, bottom up, started building from accelerators to VC funding, angels, everything.
So I imagine, I think it is the right time for like a product like this to exist. And you said the kind of solutions already existed. I can imagine things like storing 3D data being incredibly, incredibly larger than like a text file.
Yep.
How is that one of the like struggles? Is there like a limitation to the technology right now, to like the infrastructure that you're kind of advocating for or working on at the same time? Like, is there a reason why this hasn't happened until now?
Love it. Yeah, so 100%. So that's definitely true. 3D models are much larger than just an image or a video. Sometimes you have real life scans, like a single file could be like 500 megabytes. And you need to stream that to a mobile device, but sometimes the streaming capacity isn't that good, or you have a lot of users all over the world and maybe their internet connectivity isn't that kind of amazing, right? So that's one issue, kind of the file size, but also the file format itself. Image or video, it's always a single file. MP4, JPEG, whatever. For 3D, you have so many components. You have the mesh, the animation, the textures, which could be multiple files. You can have the skeleton, and all of these different files actually consist with one kind of data entity, right? But how do you handle all of them? And you also have a lot of variance. If you have a 3D model of, let's say, your avatar in a game, and suddenly you want to have that avatar have different colors or different clothes or different, whatever. So like suddenly 3D content is much more customizable than an image or a video. So all of these things together basically mean that you have to do a lot of work to basically stream 3D content and manage it. And we realize that, and that's why we've built Echo, to make sure that process is much easier. Under the hood, when you upload a file to Echo, we convert and compress it. So we'll work on Android, iOS, Magically, Polens, Unity, Unreal, any platform out there. And if you upload a 500 megabyte asset, it will automatically become a 5 megabyte asset, because we basically do polycount reductions. That basically means that we kind of decimate the file a little bit, so it will still retain the quality, but will be able to be more easily streamed anywhere. And under the hood, we kind of spawn all these servers. So if you have a user in Japan, they're going to get the asset from a server in Japan automatically. If you have a user in San Francisco, they're going to get the server from a server in San Francisco. And you can build really kind of location-based experiences, Pokemon Go style, to serve for your users.
Yeah, wow, fascinating. So for like, when I think of like solutions that include so Amazon Web Services, you mentioned in a chat that we had previous that they've kind of solved the problem for like the web-based apps. Like, have Google and Amazon like not entered into this realm? Because I can imagine they can just deploy millions, billions of dollars to make this kind of experience seamless. Like, how have they not tried to solve this problem before?
Yeah, so the big ones, again, Amazon, Google, like you mentioned, are doing a phenomenal job when it comes to kind of hosting of images, videos, stuff like that. But again, in 3D, it's totally different. Like, it not only that you have to kind of handle these assets, you have to make sure that they're updating constantly, that they have all these kind of features that we discussed that are just like very different from 2D content. And also, you also have to, if you think about it in a game, it's constantly changing. I can't move an image or a video on a website, but I can definitely move a 3D couch across the room or an avatar in a game. So that connectivity to the cloud needs to be bidirectional and like constant, which is not the case with the architecture of existing kind of 2D clouds. But still, Amazon, Google, they definitely have a 3D play. Google is super focused on the pixel and kind of adding more and more AR capabilities to your phone, adding extra cameras, which camera for me is just an AR sensor. Amazon released Amazon Sumerian, which is the kind of game engine, in-browser game engine that competes with Unity. So I think a lot of the big players are really trying to bring you to their platform. Apple even added, the LiDAR scanner into any iOS device. They can literally create 3D models and scans with your phone. So all the big ones are really focused on the hardware and the application to kind of bring you into their platform. And we're saying, we don't bet on a horse, we bet on a track. You can use Google, you can use Apple, you can use Amazon, but still use Echo to kind of manage and deliver your content across all of these platforms. So that's kind of the biggest differentiation.
Okay. Yeah, no, that does make sense. One question I want to ask is I feel like you kind of understand the space inside and out, and the rest of the world are kind of still catching up and trying to see the potential. Because you live in the space every day, do you see the next frontier of technology, like 4D, for example? Like, is there like a next level that we can't achieve yet, that you're busy solving, like streaming 3D assets, but do you see that kind of thing in the distance that we'll have to try and solve next?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's an amazing question, and it's definitely coming, right? Like the same people who couldn't imagine kind of videos online before images came in, and after videos, now we have 3D models. I'm sure that after that, we'll have 4D assets, whatever that means. But there'll probably be temporal, right? Like you can change your identity in in the metaverse. So I think that probably be something like that. But you have like the fourth dimension could be time, and like the content is constantly changing. That's one of the things that we're going to allow you with Echo3D. You can kind of rapidly change content, stuff like that. I think that's something that we will expect from 3D experiences. But in general, again, that kind of goes back to your question about like why I'm so hopeful about this space. I don't know, like we didn't expect NFTs to be such an amazing kind of use cases for 3D, and now it's all the rage. Who knew that everyone during COVID will be at home, and now like 2D conversations on video are like the norm, and now you're looking for something else. So why not kind of jump into like a 3D hologram or like a VR Zoom situation? And there's a lot of amazing companies who are doing great work on that. So I think even if we can't predict the future, we still should be super excited about this, because there's so many people who are building amazing applications, and the fact that they can kind of start leveraging 3D assets and AR, VR, it's truly inspiring.
Totally. Yeah. No, I've definitely thought about trying to think of a way to host the podcast in like a 3D environment. I just think that'd very much be in line with the mission of the podcast. So one day I might, once I find the right technology, maybe Echo can be the backbone of that.
I really hope so. Yeah.
But you're right. The world is changing a lot. And we're talking about, I think NFTs a few months ago were something that I didn't really want to bring up, because they were kind of this like edge case people were kind of experimenting with, and like just things on the blockchain and in crypto. But it's weird how rapid I feel like people are adding the word NFT to their like Twitter bios, and they're kind of like advocating for it, and they're jumping on board. So it's kind of something that I do want to start bringing up in conversations, because I start seeing things about how your driver's license might be on the blockchain. You might buy a house that has the certificate that's on the blockchain, so that it's a proof of purchase and things like that. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that is the future? Do you think it's just like a fad at the moment? Are you invested at all in this space?
So in general, I think technologies are like, it comes in waves. The same kind of thing that you feel about NFTs right now is like this kind of hot buzzword. The same thing happened to AI 5 years ago. Everyone suddenly is an AR expert, and you have AI in every application. And sometimes AI is literally, just like a few if statements on your code, and like people say that's AI. But now the companies that kind of survive that kind of hype are actually AI companies, and the ones that
Mm,
just died.
mm,
What excites me about that is, again, that like we were talking about NFTs or like blockchain in general, and suddenly there's this kind of ongoing conversation, like you kind of mentioned. Oh, should that be on a driver's license? Should that be
mm,
on your house lease or whatever? And I say, try it out. Like build a startup, create a company that does NFT driver's license, whatever. If it works, it works. Like,
mhm.
you can't argue with success. People want that, it will work. And if not, it's not. I'm a big proponent of crypto. Like I do kind of trade crypto and like, I have Bitcoin and stuff like that. Because I think that like, crypto and just like in general, just kind of currency as a use case for blockchain, I think proved itself. Like people are actually kind of using it at scale.
Mhm.
NFTs are kind of as collectibles, same thing. I look at NFTs specifically. I guess the same people like an older generation will look at art. Like someone would buy a painting for like $1 million, and like you're like, what are you doing? Like why do you need that? So when people buy an NFT, I guess it just kind of invokes the same reaction from other people who are just like, what do you need that? But it is what it is. As long as people are happy to kind of experiment and create stuff, I'm happy to.
Yeah, totally. No, I agree, and I'm curious to know over the next 6 months how many guests I have on the podcast that are still talking about the space, or if it does
Yep.
kind of die down, and like you said, like who survives at the end and has like a viable business that comes out of it.
So that's why I think kind of your podcast is so important in that regard, that you have literally like a finger in the pulse of like tech. The more kind of inbounds and the more people you have talking about NFTs, then you're getting at the point of like, yeah, NFTs are a thing, are actually a thing. Now we're seeing a lot of people talking about like Metaverse,
Mm,
3D. So that's why, I mean, again, you're probably seeing like inbound and like why we're talking right now, because like suddenly Metaverse and like 3D are like in the news.
mm,
Um, and that's perfect. Like, outlets like yours are basically, again, like the place to explore these ideas, brainstormed it together. I never thought about like NFT driver's license. You just said it, and I'm sure listeners are kind of going to be blown away as well. Like, oh my God. But that's, again, kind of the point, right? Like to
mm,
talk through these use cases to try to like to kind of figure out technology. I think a lot of technologists like myself love the tech, but what's the use case, what's the like the adoption, how people are going to use it. And that's why kind of those conversations, like we mentioned earlier, that you have to talk to everybody. You have to kind of if you're in 3D, talk to a banker.
mm.
If you're in NFTs, talk to a person at your local DMV, just to kind of figure out if there's a connection there.
Totally. Yeah, no, you're right. It's a really good point. So just kind of going back to just to Echo and the product, you have a great video on YouTube, and anyone who's interested in going kind of deeper into Echo3D and like other use cases, Alon's done some great talks online that you can find. One of the talks is building a 3D app in 15 minutes or less, and I feel like that's a really good kind of like buzzword title, and I'd love to
Yeah.
know how like what like how can you create an app in 15 minutes or less? Could you walk through kind of like that process and how easy Echo make it to do? Like for me
100%.
I'd
Yeah. So
love
that
to
is,
know, as someone who's not a developer,
yeah.
I feel like this is fascinating.
I love it. So this is something that is really in our company's DNA. Like we kind of realized, okay, we need to make sure that the time to hello world, like time to build your first application, should be super, super fast.
Mm,
In Echo today, after you register, you get like a project key. You can start uploading content, or in our console itself, we can kind of suggest 3D models that we have in stored. You upload them to your project. Automatically, you get a QR code or a link that you can share or scan, and boom, you're seeing that 3D model in augmented reality on your phone with no installation needed. Automatically, it's streamed. You can share that. It will be streamed with anyone around you.
mm,
That's the quickest thing. Again, like in that we say 15 minutes, that process is 15 seconds.
yeah.
After that, if you want to kind of add more to your application, stream more content, you can open Unity, inject our kind of the same kind of project key. Data will start streaming there. You'll see kind of 3D assets in your Unity game. You also have a bunch of simple apps that you can kind of use. Just inject that project key. All of your data will stream in. And again, even if you're non-technical, no worries. A lot of the things that I just described are actually super non-technical on Echo. It's a lot of kind of dragging and dropping, opening an app, typing in a key, and it just works automatically.
Mhm.
Um, And I think specifically for kind of, a technology like that, that is kind of super and kind of visual and kind of hyper immersive, you need that. You need that kind of, quick setup and kind of jumping into this kind of new content really rapidly. Going back to what we said about like kind of videos and images and websites, it's super easy to build a website today. Like you don't have to be a developer, right? There's so many tools out there that will allow you to build an experience. We want to bring the same kind of mentality to 3D. 3D development shouldn't be easy. You shouldn't be asking yourself, damn, how do I build a game? How do I build an AR app? And that's why kind of our core kind of value of like building an app in 15 minutes or less, super critical.
Totally. Do you have like a list of all the different verticals that Echo, like you mentioned e-commerce and games, like do you have like a list that you're conscious of on a daily basis of like people that are using the service, or are you just kind of like keeping it open and just seeing, what kind of clients come on board?
Yeah, so definitely kind of a mix of both. So like we are very community driven. As I mentioned, we have over 11,000 on the developers on our platform who kind of registered recently in the last year. And we have between 100 and 200 developers register every week. In our console, there's a page called the inspiration page. This is a page that is filled with basically amazing examples of 3D, AR, VR, gaming that just our community kind of just tells us on our Slack channel, and then we kind of showcase them there. So as like we get that bird's eye view of what people are building and like all these use cases. During COVID, we saw suddenly an influx in healthcare apps. People are building really cool ways for building applications that can help people track vaccinations or kind of visualize the process in augmented reality or in gaming. So that's only saw an influx. When the school year started, we saw a lot of kind of campus navigation apps or apps around education. So I think it's definitely kind of, it's very timely. And again, as long as we see that influx of projects, we're so happy to support them. But also, again, it kind of blows your mind what people are building. And like, if you build it, they will come. So in our kind of case, we built Echo. Suddenly we have this influx of developers using it to build all these really cool applications. And even non-developers who just, they can build a basic app in 15 minutes or less. So like, why not? So they registered as well. And suddenly they do like a complete advertising campaign without being, a technical developer at all.
Totally. Yeah. I'm kind of inspired to go just look around, see what it's like, and just see the kind of limitations or the possibilities, so that I can then just go about my days and then see if I am inspired to know that I can create something, just like a Squarespace app. If I was inspired to create a website that had some sort of information on it that I could then share. Like, I love the thought that you could just send a QR code to your friend and they can load it up and then see your NFT in 3D space or whatever it might be, like whatever idea you have, which is really, really cool.
100%. I think that's also kind of something that works really well with 3D content, how shareable people want it to be and how kind of engaging as opposed to just an image or a video. So I think we saw kind of, viral like images or videos that was kind of memes, right? Like that was how we kind of interacted with the videos. So in 3D, suddenly we have NFTs or whatever, like what's 3D meme? So again, super excited about that because again, that's just the kind of evolution of content in front of our eyes.
See, that's a really interesting topic. And like the topic of memes, I think has been really common this year, especially talking about like crypto and NFTs. Like I feel like the meme economy is like a real thing. And I would be really curious to know if you have any thoughts on what the future of content looks like in a 3D environment. Because how do you share a meme in a 3D space right now? And do you have kind of any thoughts of how kind of society or like the mainstream can move to a 3D environment? Because in a way, you need social networks to be in a 3D environment in order to share 3D memes. Like, do you have any kind of thoughts or visions about how the future might look in that way?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying, and we might have mentioned that already, that like younger generations, people who are younger than you and me, are fully on board with camera first applications. They're using TikTok, they're using Snapchat, which all are, again, using the camera. With the camera comes AR filters, face filters, content that like flies around you. I don't expect any of them to graduate back to 2D feeds if it's kind of a Facebook feed or a Twitter feed. That's why you're seeing companies like Facebook kind of changing their entire roadmap to become a metaverse company.
Mm.
And they're doing Facebook Horizons, which is like their own kind of version of the metaverse. I think again, it kind of goes hand to hand. We're seeing all these big companies like trying to bring you to their platform and keeping people engaged. Fortnite is an amazing example of, again, a social network. Like
Yeah.
people who are younger than you and me just jump in there, talk to their friends, and just play it together. And they have their own identity, their own kind of clothes, their own avatar. They play around together. They talk constantly through audio, which is kind of a crucial part for the immersion. And they just like hang out in a virtual space. And specifically in Fortnite, we can look at like, all the dances that the characters do as like a meme, or when you kind of,
Mm.
you suddenly there's like some campaign or like some kind of brand that injects itself into
Mm.
um, um, kind of Fortnite, and people say, oh, it's kind of the Fortnite guy, but it's like some kind of brand.
Yeah.
I think the things that you're seeing on TikTok, the things you're seeing, like how easy it is to create video content, how easy it is to interact with 3D, how easy it is to stream, right? Twitch did like a phenomenal revolution in the world of like streaming of gaming. So I think all of these are just trends that
Mm.
will bring us to the point that you're fully immersed in 3D. It's shareable, it's immersive, and everything that we can do in 2D or in the real world, we should be able to do in 3D or in a virtual world.
Totally. I think that's a really interesting observation you made about how once you get used to a 3D environment, or a social network that is based in like the camera view, people aren't going to go back to a 2D
Yeah, there's no
view.
going back.
And I think that is a really interesting thing to be just thinking about, that we're moving forward, and there's no signs of us of like going backwards. There might be like integrations, but I think that's a great way to know where to look and where to like invest is in those
I
kind of
think,
3D applications.
yeah, I think it wouldn't be radical to say that like our generation, I mean, doesn't use the phone, right? We text all the time. And next generation won't text, they'll kind of video chat. That's
Mm.
already happening. So after that, what will be the next thing that like people will look back? Oh, you used to text? That would be like weird. Um, and that's, I think, again, that's going back to history. Like the same way I talked about websites and mobile apps, I think the same thing is content. Like the way how weird it is that like someone kind of like calls you out of the blue suddenly.
Mhm.
Same thing will happen. Like, oh, I don't text you. They're not like talking to you, and it's like the metaverse. Yeah, I think it's inevitable.
Yeah, fascinating. One question I have is as a CEO, um, talking about like infrastructure and tools is quite boring, I can imagine, on a daily basis. Like the kind of problems that you're solving probably aren't like interesting stories to tell. So what is it like as a CEO kind of navigating between building the tech and the like infrastructure in the
Yeah,
back end compared to like selling the company and talking to people outside of it? What is that like? I'm really curious.
love it. Wow. So if you think about it, all the things that we talked about right now are like so visual. Like
Mm.
AR, VR, 3D, it's such a visual medium. But the thing that we kind of, our bread and butter is actually the invisible stuff: conversion, compression, analytics. So personally, again, I'm so excited in this hyper visual world to actually tackle the invisible stuff.
Mm.
And these kind of, under the hood stuff, infrastructure, streaming, these are things that are so crucial for us to actually get to the point that the visual stuff will actually work.
Mm.
Um, and that's why I'm so excited about that. Because again, think about like what you had with video. Now everyone takes for granted that you can just click a button and you just see any Netflix video anywhere on the planet. It just works. Under the hood, there's an insane network of servers that makes sure that when you click a button, you're going to get that video from a server closest to you, and that content will be localized, and that will have recommendations specifically for you. So all these kind of insights that we have in the world of 2D are now, again, we need to translate them into 3D. And that's what I, again, love most about it. And I think when we tell the story like that, I guess for me as a CEO, that I'm kind of, again, I'm in a hyper visual ecosystem. When I actually talk about the invisible stuff and like, look at what's happening in the world of 2D, that had to happen for us to have all this amazing kind of content out there, I think it's clear. I think like the
Mm.
message resonates really well if you kind of frame it like that.
Totally. An interesting question that came to mind when just talking about like compression and when you say like load up a video on Netflix, say they're on a really bad mobile connection, it starts in like quite a low res, and then it slowly like
Yeah.
gets higher definition. In my work as a game developer, I work with artists where they need to deliver a high poly asset of a creature, and they also need to deliver low poly versions as well, as the depending on the game as it's being streamed in for the player. In terms of dealing with like compression and like low poly assets, is that something that you expect the like the person to upload to Echo, like the low poly assets, or is that something that you're trying to
Oh,
solve
so no, so that's
automatically?
yeah, so that happens automatically. That's a big plus when you use Echo. Automatically, when you upload a 3D model, doesn't matter how amazing and like high quality it is, we automatically convert it to kind of lower resolution and lower kind of poly count versions. So when someone with a lower connectivity kind of tries to stream the model, and we recognize that their internet isn't that good, automatically they'll get a lower polygon
Mm,
poly count version of it. Automatically, you can always ask the system, I have this model, poly reduce it by 50%, by 40%,
mm,
literally with the click of a button.
cool.
So what you just kind of the frustration that you kind of set as a creator right now is something that we've heard for so many creators. And that's why we've kind of added that feature into Echo, that kind of optimization happens automatically. Again, that is something that is a bit invisible, right? Kind of
Mm,
content optimization. But it happens automatically in Echo, and also kind of through clicks or API calls. You can just say, I want this model optimized, I want this one optimized, I want this kind of converted, I want this compressed. But it's definitely kind of a big technological challenge that we had to solve. But it's something that is really, really needed in 3D.
mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's interesting because when talking about like game engines, like a decade ago, before like or a couple decades ago, before Unreal and Unity existed, people would have to create their own game engines to make the game, and
Yeah.
and it's like now it's becoming a lot easier to make a game from scratch. It's still quite, quite a big leap. I can't create my own open world MMORPG if I want. Who knows? Maybe in a decade I'll
Not
be able
yet. Not
to.
yet. Yep.
Yeah, but it's great to see, and I understand how valuable it is to have, a company that's dedicated of solving a problem that can then be scaled and given out to thousands of other people around the world with those same solutions that have already been solved, so that everyone doesn't need to solve it every time they want to create an app or create a game, which is what I see Echo kind of doing, is helping with those problems that are being solved by hundreds, thousands of different game dev
Yeah.
companies around the world, wanting to create these experiences. Right now, if you want to create like an AR experience, you probably have to think about how it's being streamed and how to make sure it's being compressed and all that, which you just probably need more experience, more time to make it. Are there any other areas like that, like when talking about compression, that you think Echo helps solve, like storage, for example? Yeah, is there
Yeah. I mean,
any other value there that you think Echo bring?
another optimization that you can think of is, let's say I'm streaming a 3D model of New York City, but I'm streaming it the entire city to the palm of my hand. Do I actually have to have every window and every taxi in that model? Probably not. So that's another kind of smart content optimization that can happen under the hood, that basically not only kind of decimates the model, but also kind of removes those kind of unneeded voxels from the model.
Mm,
And I think again, when we think about experiences, we think about gaming, we realize that we want people everywhere to play. We want people everywhere to kind of use the app. So if I download Fortnite, and just the download is 700 megabytes,
mm,
and then every season, every update is another 3 gigs. Someone in a region that doesn't have amazing internet connectivity, or like not a lot of storage on their phone, are pretty screwed. That's why I think, again, like we're pushing Echo as this kind of cloud solution that will allow you to make a 700 megabyte app into a 7 megabyte app, and updating content from the cloud, and if
mm,
and kind of dynamically mitigate those kind of connectivity issues.
mm.
um, I definitely, again, that's kind of the core value that we're trying to bring kind of everyone to this, techies, non-techies, gamers, non-gamers, to basically interact with 3D assets and 3D content.
Yeah, no, I love it. No, I'm definitely on board. And I think the definition, actually, that's an interesting question. We've only got like a few more minutes left, but when you talk about like B2C, B2B, I see Echo as like a
Yeah.
B2D. You mentioned that like
Yep.
business to developers.
Hmm.
What do you see as the future of what a developer, like the definition of a developer in terms of like skill
Yeah.
set? How much experience do you imagine a developer needing? Because I feel like that the term developer is so wide ranging depending on whether you're investigating like network code or like if you're talking about a games programmer. Like there's so many different areas. What is your kind of definition of what you see the ideal developer being in the
That's a
space of the future?
phenomenal question. It's a phenomenal question, also philosophical a little bit. Like, what is a developer? Again, we're at this point that you can go online, use Squarespace, Wix to build a website, and that
Mm,
will be a fully fledged website. And under the hood, it will be connected to the cloud, and everyone in every place on the earth will be able to stream that content to their browser. Um, are you a developer? Maybe, maybe not. You definitely don't have to have a master's in computer science to be a developer. Um, but you can definitely start building applications, building content. Um, as I mentioned again, our philosophy is like building a 3D app in 15 minutes or less. If you have 15 minutes to spare and you're not a techie, go through that tutorial,
mm,
go through the documentation, play around with it. It's in plain English. You can kind of just go at it. Um, I think again, similar to it's funny that kind of that's how we were going to end the conversation of like the kind of definition of developers, because we started with like the blurry definition of games, right? So I think that's an amazing kind of mirror image here. Um, because yeah, these definitions change. Suddenly a game could be an e-commerce platform or a social network. Same thing with developers. Suddenly a developer could be a person just building an experience somewhere. And we're seeing like almost like hyper kind of focused developers, like people who are building games inside Roblox or Rec
mm,
Room. It's a VR app that you can kind of add in sections. So yeah, I think the developer kind of the definition of developers is growing, and that's a good thing. Recently, I think it was the Andreessen block, but they shared that like the number of developers um, is already past the population of Australia or something like that. Or no, it's more than Canada, and it's going to be more than Australia, like something like that. So perfect. Like if you're a developer,
mm,
you're now part of like this basically like remote virtual distributed country
mm.
of kind of tradesmen that can create applications. And again, the bar is so low at this point that you can literally use Squarespace to build a website. You can use Echo to build a 3D game. Um, why not give it a shot? Like
Mm.
become a developer in, well, maybe not 15 minutes, but an hour.
Totally, and this is kind of debated a bit in the games industry as well. Who is a game dev? I call myself a game dev, and I'm a production coordinator. My
Yeah.
skills are in communication and planning meetings and setting up tasks and deadlines. I don't know programming, but I would consider myself a game dev. And then that's kind of
Agreed.
it's debated a bit because obviously I don't touch code or make commits to the project on a daily basis. But people
Well,
would
you are
argue,
developing a game though, like so by like this straight up dictionary definition,
yeah, yeah,
you are a game developer.
and it takes
Maybe you're
so
not a
many
game
people.
coder, but yeah.
Exactly, like you have sound designers and artists and world builders and programmers and QA testers, and like they're all
Yeah.
people that have different specializations, but they're all game developers at the end of the day. And
And you need all of them. Like in order to
totally.
have a fully kind of sustainable, fully immersive application, you need all of them.
Mm,
And again, and the banker that you need to talk to is kind of find the use case 100%. Um, it's something that we see. Again, we sign mobile, we sign web. It's not enough just to know how to code. Like you need all the other people around you to make that experience an actual experience. You can write code as much as you want, but if you don't know how to design content or mix audio, you're not going to go very far.
totally. Yeah. No, I love that. And I love how that kind of came full circle. It kind of started off a bit fluffy. It's ended a bit fluffy, but I'm actually kind of inspired and excited that I could create in the future. I could create a game if I have, a spare 15 minutes. if I have, a great idea, it might be able to be created using these kind of cloud platforms like Echo. So that's really, really inspiring. And I do really appreciate your time and the knowledge you shared, and just being able to, help me move through this kind of vision of what the future might look like. I do really appreciate your knowledge, and someone that's gone through and has probably interacted with some incredible people in the industry, and will continue to kind of make waves. So thank you so much for your time. If anyone's interested in following the Echo3D journey or your journey, where could they find you, reach out to you? Where would you like them to go?
Definitely check out our website online. That's echo3d.co, so echo3d.co. Read through our documentation. We're on Twitter. We post a lot of kind of developer workshops that we sponsor. We do a kind of weekly developer workshop on YouTube that you should definitely check out. And I'll also finish by saying thank you to you for having this kind of, this amazing venue for people to talk about technology, to spread the word, to bring in more and more people to this kind of 3D community. Thank you so much, Carl. This was so much fun.
It's my pleasure. I hope I can keep up with it as it continues to go deeper and deeper, that I don't lose track and fall behind. You mentioned like a Slack community earlier. Is that something that's open and free for people to join the Echo?
Yes. Yeah. You can definitely find a link on our website or in our console. You can definitely jump into our Slack, engage the community, see what people are building. Even if you're a non-techie, talk to a developer, work together to kind of build an app. Those developers, as you mentioned, need you, the non-techies as well, to kind of build a fully fledged app. So definitely kind of, this is definitely the time to build. And it's definitely the time to build in 3D. So yeah, and I really encourage, again, all of our listeners to think that, again, you're limited only by imagination. Who would imagine that websites will become social networks and e-commerce sites? Who imagined that mobile apps will be ride-hailing app and dating? Same thing with 3D. You can literally imagine the next amazing use case that no one is thinking about just by brainstorming a little bit and playing around with content and trying to bring in, that this new technology, in a sense, into your domain. So I encourage everyone to just kind of start building.
I love it. Thanks for your time, Alon. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Carl. This was such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Zero to Play podcast. I hope you learned something about game development, the games industry as a whole, or the future of games. You can follow us on Twitter at Zero to Play, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, or any other podcasting service. Other than that, you can find links to this episode down in the description below, and I'll see you guys next week for the next episode.